Hi, everyone. This presentation is on families and family engagement and the role of culture and family. And I'm just going to give a little disclaimer that I am trying something I haven't done before, and I'm going to try to play the audio sounds from my computer through the recorded part of this presentation. And I've tried it and I've been practicing and I'm still kind of fumbly, so bear with me. I'll try to make this as easy as possible so you're not having to watch me fumble through navigating between the video I want to play and the slides. So this first video is quite interesting and almost laughable in today's culture, in today's day and age. But in the 1950s, this was instructional video on family dinner time. So I want you to pay close attention and be thinking about how things are different now, and maybe what your own family dinner time looks like. Here we go. Here goes nothing.
This boy and girl coming home from school look quite content with life. And why not? They're looking forward to an important date, dinner at home with the family. What's the matter? Doesn't that sound exciting to you? Well, to them it's a special occasion, as it has been ever since they sat down to dinner in high chairs. Why should they feel that way about something you take so completely for granted? Well, let's see if we can find out. First of all, daughter has changed from school clothes to something more festive. Dressing a little makes her feel and consequently look more charming. Even the table takes on a special air. Mother, too, changes from her daytime clothes. The women of this family seem to feel that they owe it to the men of the family to look relaxed, rested, and attractive at dinner time. Brother is spending an hour before dinner catching up on his homework. He has plans this evening. Perhaps that explains the telephone call. But he won't spend a lot of time on the phone either. When there are several members of the family to be considered, it is not a good idea for one member to monopolize the phone. And it is never good to allow telephone conversations to interfere with studies. Is it that late? Dad'll be here any minute. Better tell Mother she's needed in the kitchen. Brother notices the time and realizes that he must put things in order and clean himself up in time for dinner. Hello there. Junior is always in a hurry, particularly for dinner. But first there's a cleanup job to do on this young man. Brother takes it upon himself to help share Junior's responsibility for keeping their room in good order and keeping Junior in good order too. Punctuality is stressed in this household. By that I mean hair is combed and faces and hands scrubbed before the boys come to the table so they won't delay the meal. Now, mother and daughter put the finishing touches on the dinner. Father, too, looks forward to this date with the family. He has had a hard day at the office, and in his briefcase are some contracts which must be looked over tonight. But in the meantime, he will relax at dinner with those he loves. A simple centerpiece made from some flowers which grow in the backyard is another of daughter's contributions to the dinner. But it takes up a little too much room, so she moves it to the sideboard. These boys greet their dad as though they are genuinely glad to see him, as though they had really missed being away from him during the day and are anxious to talk to him. This is the time for pleasant discussion in a thoroughly relaxed mood. They don't pick this time of the day to spring unpleasant surprises on Dad. If they have disagreeable news, they'll postpone the discussion until another time. And this is no time to dun Father for a raise in your allowance, new clothes, or argue about other financial matters. Ah, dinner time. Yes, Mother, Junior remembered to clean up. Brother seats Junior. Then helps Mother to her chair as he would his best girl. Well, the dinner date has begun, and they're all happy about it. Many families throughout the country observe the custom of saying grace at mealtime. It is always treated with reverence and respect. Napkins on the lap, the family awaits service. They converse pleasantly while Dad serves. I said pleasantly, for that is the keynote at dinner time. It is not only good manners, but good sense. Pleasant, unemotional conversation helps digestion. Father serves Mother first, then daughter, then the boys. Don't worry, fellas, you won't get left. Help cut your meat, Junior? Of course. By example, older children can teach younger ones good table manners. No one starts eating until Father has served himself. Always wait for the hostess, in this case Mother, to begin eating before you start. Let Father and Mother guide the conversational trend if they desire. After all, they made all this possible and may want to talk over their day with each other. Tell Mother how good the food is. Maybe Sis rates a compliment too. It makes them want to continue pleasing you. Well, all this is good general advice, but there are some specific don'ts. Maybe the family will demonstrate for us. Don't monopolize the conversation and go on and on without stopping. Nothing destroys the charm of a meal more quickly. To say that the rest of the group is bored would be a gross understatement. Don't discuss unpleasant topics such as gruesome sights or sounds, or unpleasant occurrences. This is a time of pleasure, of charm and relaxation, remember? Don't make unkind comparisons about your standard of living. The dinner table is no place for discontent. It makes Dad and Mother uncomfortable and unhappy. Don't insult your brother or sister with offensive remarks about friends. Arguments, harsh words mean tension and distress for everyone. Do remember simply this. Treat the other members of your family with the same respect and cordiality you would show your most treasured friend outside the family circle. This does not mean you should be stiff or formal. With your own family, you can relax. Be yourself. Just be sure it's your best self. This is better. Now things are on an even keel again. Now we're ready for dessert. Most families don't have maids, so Mother needs help with the serving from the kitchen. Son says mother has done enough. Watch him play butler. The removal of dishes from the main course and the serving of dessert set the stage for the conclusion of a thoroughly pleasant meal. Do you begin to see now how a date with your family can be a truly special occasion? Do you know why brother and sister looked forward to the evening? When the dinner hour at home is treated with a certain amount of graciousness and ceremony, it can be memorable. There is no family so poor but that the evening meal can be eaten in an atmosphere of warmth and gentleness. There is no family so busy but that it can come together in the evening for a dinner date which will give its members something to look back upon with happiness all their days.
And so take a minute and think about how family dinner time is different um, today. And what does your own family dinner time look like? And what were some of the themes in that video that maybe are not true today as they were in 1950? So, for example, females needing to look attractive at dinner time to be pleasing to the husband and brothers. That's completely inappropriate now. Um, and something that I picked up on was it appeared that the boys or the older brother's education was more important than sister's because he was in his bedroom doing his homework while sister was prepping for dinner. And so there's some things that just are not true today as they were in 1950. And think about that and how that's changed and why that has changed. And we're going to hash this out in our discussion board this week for family engagement. So understanding families, we use the term family to include an entire group of adults who play a significant role in a child's life. And just to use my own family as an example, I have a very unique family, and I know we haven't talked about this in this class. If we were face to face, you would hear all about my family every class day probably, but we just don't have time online. But I have a very unique family in the sense that I've had a multi-generational household where my husband's mother has lived with us for a period of about 2 years, and I'm also a foster parent. And there's a lot of extended family when it comes to foster care, and these adults don't live with us, but they play a significant role in their children's life, and we see them as extended family. And parenting can include the nurturing done by all of the important adults who take care or take on that parental role. And some families, this even means older sisters and brothers, aunties, uncles, grandparents, extended family. Some people refer to their best family friends as role models and caregivers for the children. And I know in my own family, we call my best friend Auntie. My children have grown calling her Auntie, and she's an important part of my children's life. And so family takes on all these different forms. When you think about the 1950s and society, how they viewed family, it was a very nuclear family, meaning, and I should say in American society, in Western society, there was a mom and a dad and 2.5 kids and a dog and a white picket fence and a house with enough bedrooms for everyone. And that's just not what family looks like today. Now we have siblings raising children, grandparents raising children, children being raised out of in out of home placements. Um, and family takes on a whole bigger, broader meaning, and the spectrum of family is so much different. Single parents, same-sex couples, grandparents raising children. Again, just family takes on a much broader scope and in a lot of ways different yet healthy. So when we think about family, we have to think about there are so many components that make us who we are. And so at the core, there are the things like our age, race, ethnicity, gender, physical abilities or qualities, um, sexual affectional orientation. That's like at our core as adults of who we are and what makes us who we are. And then we have on the outside of this nucleus um, things like work background, income, marital status, military experience, religious beliefs, geographic location, parental status and education. And just again, to use my own family as an example, we are not a traditional family. I am the primary income earner. My husband has been the stay-at-home parent for on and off for the last 6 years. And we are married. We are in a traditional, we're married. Um, my husband is former military. He's a veteran, a disabled veteran. And we don't have religious practices. We're not part of an organized religion, but we are spiritual. We've both grown up and lived in the same place our entire lives, except for when my husband was in the military. And our parental status, we are both biological parents and foster parents. Um, and I have a college education and background. My husband does not. And that's just part of what makes us who we are. And it does impact our family. So we have to understand that various demographics of America, you have to know that will be represented in your class. You're going to have families from all walks of life, and you have to recognize their strengths in each family type. Only 20% of children are raised in breadwinner homemaker families. So what does that mean? That is referring back to that 1950s model of the nuclear family where the dad is the income earner and the mother stays at home and cares for the children. That's just not a traditional makeup anymore. 23% of children are being raised by a single mother, only half of whom have ever been married. 7% live with a parent who cohabits with an unmarried partner. 3% of children live with a single father. And 3% live with grandparents but not parents. And so here's just a nice graphic on work family living arrangements of children from 1960 to 2012. You could see quite a change happened between 1950 or 60, I'm sorry, and 2012. When you look at this chart, 65% of parents were married and only the father was employed, and now that's only at 22%. And this just is a different way to look at the data that I just shared on the previous slide. And in Washington state, the demographic is even changing. And so this is demographics on race and ethnicity in families in Washington. And so we are at 80% white, whereas in comparison to the United States at 77.4%. And you can read the demographic here, and this breaks it down by percentage of who lives in our state. And this is from data from 2014, I should add. So let's talk about how you can represent families in your classroom. What does that look like? And when we think about what's displayed in our classroom on the walls, the books that we have out, the curriculum that we select, it all matters. So books, having inclusive communication, having general activities, having visual diversity in your materials and your toys. And then here's an article from the Huffington Post on thanks to these kids, toys may never look the same. So this is an interesting article. If you have time, pop it out of the presentation and take a look. And child rearing practices are absolutely influenced by culture. And so when you think about toileting and the age and process for toilet training, in the United States, this happens during toddlerhood. And in some cultures, this happens much earlier. And in some cultures, this happens a little bit later. And the same with nursing and bottles and pacifiers, and whether to use them and for how long children should be nursed, at what age bottles are introduced, and whether and for how long pacifiers are used. This is all very cultural and very unique to each family. And so, you know, I've seen a lot of criticism of mothers who nurse beyond the age of 2. And just to put something into perspective, we are mammals. And when you think about how long other mammals nurse their young, 3 years is not that long of a time span. There are mammals that nurse much longer, and it's natural. And bottles and pacifiers are also something very unique to humans, and we choose to use those for different reasons. And then when we think about personal care and independence, in the United States, we're a very independent culture, and other cultures maybe have more of a codependent relationship with family, where the family is taking care of one another. When you think about co-sleeping, um, cohabitating, all of that. I forget the statistic, but I believe I think this has changed recently too, but by the age of 23, most American children have moved out on their own and have started their own families. And in some cultures, the children don't move out and they stay and they live and they cohabitate with their family and then they take care of the parents. And so it's really unique and different to think of each culture and the strengths that they have. Um, and in our US culture, we tend to not co-sleep with our children. There's a lot of science on the benefits of co-sleeping, and there are a lot of statistics on the dangers of co-sleeping. And so really making a decision as a family, what's best. Um, but for some reason in the US, we want our children to sleep independently as soon as possible. And we do that because we are a culture that values independence. And there's nothing right or wrong about that. It's just a fact. And then the definitions of safe and healthy and how long children are protected from health and safety risks, getting cold, climbing high, just the things that we think of as safe that other cultures might think of as not safe or vice versa. It all just is very dependent on where you live. So what is family engagement? Families should be invited in the decision making of a program, of a classroom, of a school community. And the communication between families and teachers is open and should be reciprocal. And the home and school learning should be interconnected. This is a very Western idea of family engagement. In some cultures, families see their role in the child's education as making sure that they are fed, clothed, had a good night's sleep, get their homework done, and then in the morning when you put those kids on the bus or you drop them off at the front doors of the school, it is the school's job. The rest is the school's job. The parent's job is to make sure that the children are prepared by having slept well, by having a good breakfast, and then go on. Now it's the teacher's job. And so you have to respect that too. But we also know from data and from science that having the interconnectedness between home and school learning, it does benefit children. And so finding the best ways for parents and families to engage in a way that makes sense to them is important. So what are the benefits of family engagement? For the family members, they get to learn more about the child's growth and development. They get insight about their own child in a new context, and they develop an understanding of teaching strategies that they could implement at home. For the children, they see their family members in a different role. They meet new adults with skill sets and backgrounds that are different from their own, and they get more individualized attention. Sorry, it's really windy here. If you hear that sound in the background, it's my uh, vent on my range. Um, Teachers, the benefits to teachers, this is an increased child-adult ratio leads to more opportunities for teaching. So if parents are volunteering in the classroom, there are more eyes on kids, more adults to read to children, more adults to help with small group activities. Um, Teachers, when families are in the school setting, teachers get to observe the parent-child relationship, and that's a critical and important part of understanding family strengths. And they gain knowledge from families. When I was an ECAP teacher many, many years ago, we always did every single year this getting to know you meeting. We call them initial contacts. And the families, this was before the school year even started, the families would come into the classroom and they would share about their family and they would share about their children. And we use that information to make good choices about what types of activities we do in our classroom with our children and the best ways to invite parents for family engagement is a beautiful, beautiful way to include families. So here's some ideas for building family partnerships. So build a relationship from the start. And I know that as teachers, And education professionals or specialists, it can be hard, especially if buses are involved and you don't get to see parents face to face. But daily communication is important, and just listen to families. So any opportunity that you get to call home or send an email, or if you have the Remind app and you could send text messages to families, however they best communicate, find out and use that. And something to consider is the frequency of communication matters. And I know that it's challenging because our day is filled with so many other things. But if you're only contacting a parent because their child is in trouble, that's the only communication they hear from you. They build a story in their head about you as the teacher. Like, oh, this teacher doesn't like my child, is the story many parents will begin to develop. They'll also develop the story of my child is the bad child. And that's often not the case, but sometimes that's the only time that we have that's the only communication we have time for, is when there's a problem. So be conscious of that. And I tell my teachers when I was supervising teachers the 5-to-1 rule. For every one time that you have to send something home about a problem, if it's academic, social, emotional, you should have contacted that family 5 other times about something positive, so that they build a positive relationship with you, and they will be more apt to listen to your concerns when you have done that. So think about your written communications. This could be bulletin boards, notes, newsletters, emails. When I was teaching kindergarten, something that I made sure to do every week was a handwritten newsletter. Parents get so much typed information that most of it goes right in the garbage or the recycle. But if you take the time to handwrite a newsletter, I know it takes time. I did it every week. You can do it too. It takes time, but when they see that you took the time to handwrite something, they appreciate it and they will read. They're more likely to read it. And then family conferences, you should share samples of work, developmental progress, observational records. But you know what you should also share? How much you enjoy their child. And so just be thinking of ways that you partner with and engage families in your classroom and your school community. And so family involvement. So encourage families to participate. A lot of families are dual income earners and they cannot come to the classroom to volunteer during the day, but that doesn't mean that they can't come to family night. And so make sure that your school, if your school isn't having family nights, you can maybe be the one to take the charge, take the lead, and make sure it happens. Provide ongoing information about the school and activities and child progress. Ask parents for information. If you've got some assessments that you're trying to do and you don't have enough data, maybe the parent knows something that might add to your assessment. Use a sign-up sheet for volunteer time. Parents don't know to sign up to volunteer if they aren't asked. Provide a wide variety of ways to participate. So advisory councils, mandatory participation, that's a tricky one. If you're working at a co-op preschool, parents already know that participation is mandatory. Field trips are some ways to get parents to engage, because I work full time, but if I know there's a field trip, I'll take the day off so that I can be present. Is there things that parents can do at home to support you in the classroom? Maybe it's maybe it's cutting things out for the bulletin board. Maybe it's some take-home project that they can help. But then, are you able to do home visits? If you're working in an early learning program, especially a state-funded or federally funded program, you likely are doing home visits already. And then asking for classroom help. So here's a way. Here's just a form that requests interaction. So getting to know the best way parents can help. When they have choices like this, they have something to choose from. And a lot of parents, when they think of family engagement, they think volunteering in the classroom during the school day. And a lot of parents are going to opt out because they're working. But maybe you can send homework for me to do, cut out, glue, staple, organize. Schedule in advance. I'd love to come in and read a story to the class. I can't dedicate 6 hours of a school day, but I can dedicate 45 minutes to read a story. I'm interested in chaperoning on a field trip, or I can come in these days of the week to help. And so this is just a great tool, and it lets parents know that you're interested and excited to have them be a part of your school community. Um, so from the family article that I posted in Canvas, make sure that you read the introduction, Part B, Part C, and Part D. And here's a video on involving families. I'm actually going to post this one in the module so you can watch it on your own time rather than me playing it through the speakers right now, because this presentation is already pretty long. And another one on growth mindset. You know, you may have watched this growth mindset video already. All right, we made it. I'm going to stop here. Have a great week, everyone. I hope you're all well, and I hope you enjoy this presentation.